This right here is actually probably
No! Don't show it! I know what he's gonna show. Why did I have to be the first victim for this? Nobody even knew this was a thing. I was like 17 years old.
single most iconic Footstool moment.
Oh my Lord! Jesus! Good Lord!
I'm a victim! So we're gonna be watching a little bit of Mock Rock. He makes a lot of great videos. I've watched him before. Big fan of him. Smash combos are weird. That's the name of the video that we're going to be watching. Spitting. Smash combos are very weird. A lot of variance within them. Sometimes you trade in the middle of your combo and it extends your combo and it shouldn't be like that, but it is, and then your opponent's dying a different way. It just changes a lot depending on what's going on.
We're trekking through Smash Ultimate's 8th year, and as someone who's meticulously followed it since the start, I've watched just how
He just self-reported as an old person.
I'm sure from how its creators intended it to be played.
No. This isn't how you're supposed to play the game.
I'm honestly surprised with all of the crazy combos that they've seen that they just like kind of like let it rock. I guess you could argue that like a lot of the crazy combos were developed towards the later end of the game when they started patching stuff. I mean, I feel like they had like a patch or two to like kind of see what was going on with Rob and Pikachu and then just kind of hit it with a hammer or something, but they just didn't do that at all. And then they made Steve.
Of course, I simply can't cover every development on every one of Ultimate's 80+ characters. Part of this video was sourced from a Twitter thread I made, and not even all of that could make it in.
I just want to say, because I'm the Zero Suit guy, nothing has developed for Zero Suit. I made a tweet a while back about how Zero Suit just kind of peaked by like year 2 of Ultimate. There was nothing else to develop and everything had already been mastered, which is probably why I had so much success in the early years of Ultimate, because the ceiling for Zero Suit was so low and you could get by on just doing that stuff. And like every other character, nobody could even see the ceiling at this point. Like Link, even Link combos, he's not even like as viable as a character as Zero Suit, but he still has so much more like depth and combo potential simply because of like one item, whereas Zero Suit just doesn't really have any of that. The developers did like a really good job of making sure that anything that could be some form of an infinite or interesting combo just wasn't. This guy always talking about ZSS, like get over it. What did I do?
Wholesome rising up air, used exactly
Nice.
as Palutena intended. And this is the devilish, sinful falling up air.
Oh.
The devs know you can do falling up air combos. I'd assume so. For Ultimate, they literally had pro players on the team. That said, if you look at how Smash Ultimate actually handles its falling up airs, particularly among sword fighters where the hitboxes are distributed like
It's because they learned from Cloud. If you remember falling up air with Cloud from Smash 4, you should qualify for a senior discount and like probably free entry for everything because of how traumatized you are and PTSD I got from that.
lottery tickets, and then compare that to every other platform
What is that, Tippert? I hate Claren.
fighter. It's pretty clear that they're more of a happy accident rather than a serious use case the devs considered when putting these characters together. I wish they had. It would be a substantial improvement to game feel, but the plus side is that by making falling up airs obnoxiously finicky on a lot of characters, it increases the skill ceiling and player expression of going for them anyways. My personal favorite among the pack has to be Bowser.
Bowser's falling up air? That's like not even that good. Unless he's about to show me something I don't know.
His clumsy headbutt was 1000% not to be a combo starter, but my god does it feel good to use it like that anyways. And it leads into what can be some absolutely ludicrous damage in different iterations than neutral air, which is its only other launcher like.
If I get hit by a Little Mac falling up air combo, you guys can just unplug my heart monitor, dudes. If I'm getting hit by Little Mac falling up air, it's because I don't have the brain activity.
Just have fun actually trying to land it.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of which, Clouds previously...
Ah, he's gonna talk about it! Okay, hold on. No,
actually trying to land
because
it.
whatever he says isn't gonna do it justice.
Speaking of which...
Look at this. Look at this hurtbox shift from Cloud. Look, you see how nice and long and vulnerable Cloud is here? Look, what happened here? How come in one frame his entire body flipped completely upside down? How did that happen? He turned into a little ball. And imagine if he was front facing too, like they were playing neutral, like two normal human beings. His entire leg would fade back too. And look at this sword. That's a disjoint. Look at the look at it. Hitbox! And it kills me. Look at this. This is real hitbox. Oh my god.
Cloud's previously outrageous falling up air combos were actively, surgically targeted for complete removal between Smash 4 and Ultimate. But in true JRPG fashion, our spiky-haired protagonist pushes forward through adversity. I'm going to assume with the power of friendship coming into play somewhere. Sure, falling up air is a lot harder to land than it used to be, but that's probably for the best considering it still absolutely rips.
It's still very good, but it's nowhere near as egregious as it was in Smash 4. This is not real, but this is like if you put all of the active frames on that move at once, that's what this would look like.
Game Sakurai did know what he was doing here. Charizard can do this, apparently out of falling up air. Thank you, Sword, for tuning me into that one. And I love that the Belmonts, who are clearly supposed to be reaching as far above them as possible, can actually use falling up air as an optimal follow-up to catching someone in a holy water at lower percents. Or
I try to go for that whenever I play Belmont, and it's a little crusty sometimes.
hell, it can even be a bona fide kill confirm. On the topic of which,
reverse hits are sexy. Let me clarify. Some of them are, especially when used intentionally in a combo. Then you have moves like Falcon Punch that have a reverse hitbox. Why are we doing that?
reverse hits, where landing a move with offset positioning launches your opponent in the opposite direction it normally would, were
that's cool.
staple tools for tons of different characters in earlier Smash games. As time's gone on, though, more and more of that utility has been taken away, and with Ultimate deliberately removing...
That's why, dude, like, whenever I talk about this game with Smash 4 players, they say this game has no sauce, and this is why.
Many of Simon and Richter's moves have an outrageously weak sour spot at point-blank range to emphasize just how zonery they are. And if you angle their back air upwards, which they're uniquely able to do, you can isolate its weak spot fairly reliably.
Look, what is that?
Moment gameplay, I'll be real, you're better off doing basically anything else. But because it can true combo into tipper forward smash, it's again an optimal follow-up out of Holy Water in some scenarios. Now, finding footage of this in the wild was admittedly a slog. It's still very precise, and the Belmonts control like wet concrete in the air, but hey, I did find it. This is a real thing their players have implemented and absolutely does steal stocks at insanely early
scammed, my god.
It's cool to see at least one really solid use case left for reverse hits in Ultimate, because the pickings overall are pretty damn slim.
What is rebounds? Like stuff off of like Steve Block? Because that's what I think of when I hear rebounds.
All-time favorite dumb interactions.
Oh no. Oh my. This is why you don't make fun of people for straight up not interacting with Game & Watch Up Smash.
Here's what's going on. If two ground moves clank,
Wait, I want to test myself on knowledge. If two ground moves clank and they are within 10% of each other, you will both get like hit away. But if one move exceeds that 10% threshold, I think I'm wrong. It doesn't just beat it out, but it like only one of you stagger.
each player will be stuck in what's called Rebound for a bit, which scales up with the strength of the stronger move between the two, and then both characters get to fight again. If one of those moves is much stronger though, 9 damage stronger specifically,
9 damage.
Instead, it'll simply win, plunging
I didn't know it would just straight win, but okay.
right through after the initial pause and clobbering whichever coward through the weaker blow while they're still stuck in.
He's washed? I never knew that, so I can't be washed. That can't make me washed. Come on.
And with those, we've now covered like 99% of ground collisions. But in extreme cases where your strong hit whiffs is so strong that it generates a ton of rebound and doesn't have much ending lag, you just might be able to waltz right up to your rebounding opponent and get a combo even though you didn't technically hit them.
No way, once again. We got torched over here.
This is, of course,
That's not called Trample. No, Trample is a special property on like very specific moves that ignore that entire interaction that he just explained and will win every time. Little Mac, I think all of his ground moves have that, or most of them.
a select few ground moves just straight up have rebound immunity hard-coded into them. There aren't many, and most of the existing ones are again pretty niche, but you know, there are a few you can reasonably do stuff with, especially for Little Mac.
Trample.
On top of all his smash attacks having super armor, all of his other ground moves except dash attack also get rebound immunity. Yeah, the devs really did not want him losing down.
He doesn't know it's called Trample. Knockrock is a noob. He does not know ball.
He gets so much use out of it, in fact, that it got its own nickname.
W Trample.
Okay, well, you know, the devs may not have intended Rebounds or Simon's armpit to be used that way, but at least they did mean to put them in the game. Now let's talk about something that's unambiguously not supposed to be here. One of the more interesting pieces of Smash tech discovered last year was King K. Rool's crown duplication glitch. While opponents can always pick up his unguarded crown and use it as an item, if he tries that, it just goes back onto his head. Until now.
For reference, I have a video on me trying to do this. It's pretty hard.
He still needs to kiss the blast zone, so he's left pretty vulnerable, but vulnerable's better than dead, I guess. And even after the duplicate crown spawns, keeping it there is pretty fragile, and there's not even a guarantee you're gonna be the first one to get your hands on it. Still though, if you can set this up, it's a really good item that opens up some pretty ridiculous stuff, and it has been brought out in bracket before, so maybe this really is the
I think Brujo has a clip of him doing this.
It is cool though. Now moving from cool to hot. Incineroar, on the first frame that Revenge is active, he'll get some weird momentum, which can allow follow-ups he wouldn't normally have access to.
I actually did not know this one.
Oh, and back to King K. Rool, apparently his up air does not stall him if he mashes it out of hit stun.
That's true.
That has to be a glitch, right? Here are a couple extremely difficult and extremely useful techs I've talked about on my second channel, Mock Rock Talk, before.
That's kind of like the big deal about Toriguri. Banjo was potential man for a very long time. He's got a lot of promising tech that makes him pretty obnoxious to deal with and a pretty good character, but Toriguri was like probably one of the first people to actually try implementing it.
Banjo-Kazooie's Regal Blaster is always a good move, but by doing a ridiculously tricky input called the Smash Turnaround Cancel, aka Kazooie Fast Cancel, aka KFC.
Nice.
Fire a shot using specifically a smash attack input, immediately shield, and then immediately hold backwards just a hair. You can cancel out of the typical ending lag of putting Kazooie away, which gives you access to some pretty nutty kill confirms that the character was definitely not intended to have. In similar territory, Piranha Plant's Patooie is a character-defining projectile, but by performing the Spallo, a technique that requires multiple frame-perfect or near-frame-perfect inputs to trick Piranha Plant into kind of trying to catch and throw the projectile at the same time, you get a lower launch position with reduced ending lag, which opens up brand new combo opportunities and even unblockable setups.
Why does Piranha Plant have better combos than Zero Suit Samus?
Late meta speedrun territories of difficult, but the perfectly named TAS over in Japan just casually throws it out all the time.
Yo, who is this TAS guy? I don't know anybody else doing this with Piranha Plant.
Oh, and since I last talked about this, TAS has also started incorporating the drop shot, an entirely different but equally difficult technique.
Like, you see what I mean? The ceiling for Zero Suit is about this high and everyone else is about... You get the idea.
Less of a glitch and more of an exploit, any character in Ultimate can cancel the first few frames of their granted attacks with a jump or shield, known as an attack cancel. This can be a nice technique for quickly turning yourself around, and a lot of characters sprinkle it in here and there. But for Rosalina specifically, where her attacks get canceled, but Luma's don't, yeah, who could have guessed that being able to do two actions at the same time ended up being kind of good?
Back in my day, we used to just call that a RAR input. RAR, reverse aerial rush input. Now we got all these new fancy techniques.
And then Steve can... Look, if I get into every horrible thing Steve gets up to, this just turns into a Steve video from now on. You've got Waidu, you've got Steve Lab, you've got Rockman. If it's alright, I'm going to avoid having the character who already dominates everything else also dominate this video.
Very wise.
Okay, you know what? Maybe just one. What the fuck is this?
True! Alright, Footstool.
Back in Smash 4, Footstool combos were actually a relatively prominent part of high-level play by the end of the game's life.
Dude, I think Footstool combos were so saucy. We just lost that. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I think it's like kind of a good thing because it was very cool, but I like that it's a little bit more interactive now. You used to not be able to tech footstools. So if somebody hit you a footstool and you land on the ground, you just flopped down. So some characters that had like a low enough jump height or any other type of tool or mechanic, they could actually just lock you some type of aerial or a weak move, and then you would be guaranteed to do a neutral getup, which is another thing that is no longer in the game.
They weren't everywhere, and the execution could be tricky, but the fact that you couldn't tech out of a footstool, combined with how devastating getting reset off a quote-unquote miss.
See, look, dude, that's cool. Look,
Couldn't tech out of a footstool.
falling up air footstool, do a cape to kill your upward momentum, hit a weak nair intentionally. I like a little bit of dip on the chip.
Did definitely open the door to them becoming more and more degenerate over time. Even if by the time Smash 4 wound down, they were still mostly fine. As cool as they were, Ultimate's attempts to quash them by no longer forcing a long stand-up in place after a reset, as well as making footstools completely techable. That's right, every time you see a smarmy Aegis player do this and feel so clever, just know, it's fake, was valiant and well-informed.
Though low-key kind of hard to tech. I've learned the hard way.
And foolish! That's right, Sakurai, you can't keep a good thing down. Piranha Plant has true kill confirms using Footstool into Piranha Copter on several characters. I have no idea why it works, but I love it. If you want to really revolutionize that all-important Piranha Plant Duck Hunt matchup, chop chop. Wait, Ultimate instead became the era of the grounded footstool. That spine compression is looking pretty brutal.
This smells like scoliosis!
And while it may not paralyze for as long as tumbling out of
Video ruined, wow.
the air does, unlike with those airdrops, there's still no opportunity to tech here. Your opponent's completely locked into that animation, and as it turns out, there's a lot of stuff you can do with that.
I think this was a cool optimization that people made in Smash Ultimate. Footstool out of shield. It's like mechanically impressive to do and kind of hard to find. Especially versus top players who are used to people fishing for that.
For Ultimate as well, but with characters jumping much faster in this game, it's become way more appealing. Case in point, Footstool out of shield. Ultimate nerfed shield grabbing into the ground, so this is now a lot of characters' fastest out of shield option by a large margin, and over the last few years has solidified itself as a standard part of the high-level metagame, which is awesome. Ultimate's had a very good run already, and if its lifespan had been the same as Smash 4's, they'd likely be winding down in that quirky thing that you see a few players whip out here and there kind of phase.
I feel like parrying is kind of its own mechanic that you might even be able to make a video out of because of how, like, its usefulness has fluctuated so much throughout Ultimate's lifespan. It was like only me and Light were good at parrying. It was really cool because that means we could just tear up anyone's shield, and if they tried to do the same to us, parry, punish, back to playing neutral, you know? And it was also cool because there were other people who were just around that were like randomly really good at parrying and would try super hard to fish for it, and like they weren't quite good enough at the game yet, but they were interacting with the new mechanic, and that was something to appreciate. Nowadays, I feel like a large majority of the player base, especially in top level, are decent at parrying, if not just straight up good at parrying. And it's become like a part of the meta that it should actually be in the conversation of like shield pressure.
And while I was busy deservedly hyping up Smash 4's aerial footstool combo stuff earlier, this right here is actually probably
Don't show it! I know what he's gonna show. Why did I have to be the first victim for this? Nobody even knew this was a thing. I was like 17 years old.
Single most iconic footstool moment.
Oh my lord! Jesus! Good lord!
I'm a victim!
It's still here, and he can do it out of Shadow Ball now. Mewtwo may not be broken in Ultimate, but Shadow Ball definitely is. It did not need this. Oh, and if you were wondering, yes, this works out of shield as well. It's one of the trickiest, but also one of the most lethal out of shield options in the game. I'm still always gonna have a soft spot for the aerial stuff, though. It's such a distinctive and interesting element of Smash 4's gameplay, and I wish it hadn't been stripped away nearly so much in Ultimate. But
oh my god,
still, it's been almost 2 decades now since Brawl introduced what was originally just supposed to be a bit of slapstick humor, and people are still finding new ways to abuse it. I can't hate that.
This character is a walking bug. Ice Climber's not real.
Too much going on to fit into a compilation. Having 2 characters at once is just begging to be exploited, and there are so many ways you can desync them. Did you hit the ground funny? Yep, that's a desync. Did you skid on the ground funny? Believe it or not, that's a desync. Did only one Ice Climber grab the ledge? Oh, you'd better believe that's a desync. Even before Ultimate came out, people noticed this little happy dance
I'm playing Donkey Kong at Elite today, Lockie. It's not gonna happen.
that Nana does when Popo grabs someone, which is explicitly designed to stop the ice climbers from getting a loop off a grab, preventing the exact kinds of overbearing touches of death that plagued players in every earlier Smash game the climbers appeared in. This is a great idea, and oh my god, did people get around it so fast. Good lord. Even when the ice climbers are paired up, grab someone out of your initial dash, pummel and jump at the same time, and oh, you've got a desync. Now, to be fair, these still aren't nearly as toxic as what Melee and Brawl had to deal with. They're typically a lot more interesting and dynamic and not nearly as guaranteed a kill all the time. But the end result of don't you dare get grabbed
What's up, Sibo?
is still essentially the same. I'm always curious about exactly how much of their overall desync behavior the devs were prepared for. They obviously knew it was a thing considering they put a direct counter in the game, but better luck next time.
If you put ice climbers in this game, in any Smash game, Nintendo can't fix them. They would just straight up have to like make the second climber a ghost before. I'm sure they'd still mess that up somehow.
Every item in Ultimate can be used for combos in some way or another, and while they're always strong and even character defining, you know, moves are allowed to be strong and characters are built with those strengths in mind. For a few of those items, though, the devs never made them despawn after use. At the end of the day, Link's remote bomb actually ended up relatively uncontroversial. It can and does do silly stuff, but his setups into it are relatively honest, don't pop up constantly, and he's generally seen as a fairly humble character who could use the help.
Damn.
Peach
Okay,
and
Gluto.
Daisy's turn-ups ended up being a bit of a different story, though, and I'm thoroughly convinced that they're not despised only because their advanced stuff is way too difficult for most players to ever run into.
Wait, what did I just do?
Absolutely shred your fingers with every known item tech in existence. Air dodge cancels and double tosses and triple tosses and things I've never even heard of that only they're capable of. But the end result is some of the most disgusting damage output that any character has ever managed in any Smash game.
I feel the same too, Zava. Like, okay, hold on. Like, this facepalm is perfect. You know why? He's smiling. That's not a frown. He's not pissed. He's just like, are we serious, bro? And this is kind of my fault.
I wouldn't feel too bad for the Rob players, though. His gyro still ended up being the most notorious of any of these despite, or because of, being the simplest. In a vacuum, it's a solid but relatively unremarkable move, but in combo applications, it's consistent, straightforward to use, and attached to the same character as this monstrosity. Ultimate massively buffed arm rotor compared to Smash 4, which to be clear, was justified. But even though Rob's archetype has always been a bit ambiguous, I would bet good money that he was not intended to be a touch of death character on this level. It's not like you can really blame arm rotor too much for this either. While having an offstage finisher that strong does make things easier for Rob than for many other characters, Scobo here took on the absolutely outrageous task of finding a true zero to death route with gyro using every single character and pulled it off. Seriously,
that's
these
impressive.
unchecked items.
Okay, instant double jumps have high keep been a thing for a very long time. I would assume even Melee players were implementing IDJs.
You jump, and then instantly jump again. Now, Mewtwo players may be wondering what the fuss is all about. They've always done this because these kinds of super floaty, flippy double jumps work really well for combos. But in Ultimate specifically, where jumping...
I thought he was saying that because Mewtwo's double jump is dog shit.
Everybody's double jump is a junior version of Mewtwo's, and as it turns out, this seemingly minor change actually ends up being a pretty big deal for a lot of characters. Let's do a Terry combo to demonstrate. First, without IDJ. Right off the bat, this full hop down air here does work, but you have to perfectly time it to avoid getting a short hop. Doable, but tight. Then we do another loop back down, come back up with a neutral air this time, and tag DK with a jab. That's certainly not bad. If anyone knows anything about Terry, it's that jab does good stuff, but what we actually wanted here was to convert rising neutral air into falling neutral air, because falling neutral air converts into a spike. Let's fix things with IDJ. We do the first IDJ for this rising down air, which is now more lenient because IDJ aerials can be buffered, unlike full hop ones. Then we loop back down the same as before, but this time, when we rise with our neutral air, we're gonna use a second IDJ. And this time around, it's mandatory, because it gives Terry just enough time to get a second neutral air out, and that'll clean up the stock.
I actually really like content like this that he just did. I would love to do this kind of stuff. Like if I ever did like educational content, which I might do in the next Smash game, but like he just showed a combo without tech and how it was inferior, but still good. And then a combo with tech, which was harder, but straight up better. Like he showed visually and explained both of what he was doing. I appreciate that as a content creator myself, Mock Rock. That was awesome.
Here's what the full combo looks like uninterrupted. And seriously, ignore the fact that I'm using Terry specifically for this. He does get good use out of IDJ, but you can fit it in all over the place.
I'll try spinning. That's a good trick.
That means
Zero Suit has a lot of IDJ combos too. Multi-hits are broken, inconsistent, and cause dragdowns.
linking hitboxes have always been precarious in Smash.
Woo!
Make them too weak and opponents will constantly pop out of the move. Make them too strong and you get this. Ultimate's definitely managed to avoid more of the disastrous stuff than previous Smash games, but there are still plenty of fun ways to exploit multi-hits and probably always will be, which I love because this happens to be one of my favorite aspects of Smash characters. In fact, one of the very first things I ever did when I got Ultimate was start labbing out interrupted multi-hit combos. And it's always ambiguous as to exactly how much of this was actually anticipated by the devs. Captain Falcon's Neutral Air 1 went from fixed knockback in Smash 4 that you could footstool off of on some characters to just an outrageously good combo tool in Ultimate, both as a starter and a link in the middle of longer sequences.
He did an IDJ, did you see it?
And maybe that was intentional, or maybe the intern programming this thing was desperately scrambling to finally stop the twinks from falling out of it. Well, maybe in Smash 6. I say this because me, Brawler,
All right, be honest. Do you guys think that should connect? This is a bit of a personality test here.
twinks from falling out of
Look,
it.
you know what Nair does. You know, even ignoring whatever you did. If you hit Nair 1, should you hit Nair 2? Do you think this is fair?
Maybe the thing was desperately scrambling to finally stop the twinks from falling out of it.
He hit the first part of the move. Why doesn't the rest of it connect?
Greninja and Joker's Dragdown up airs are some of the coolest combo tools in the entire game. I don't know what makes these so satisfying to watch and use, but it really does feel like you're stylishly outsmarting the devs. Okay, this one is maybe outsmarting them a little too much. The rest, though, A+. Seriously, dude, stop! I consider Dragdowns in general to be more proof that the devs are not planning this in advance, because explain to me why the Belmonts get their spinny combos all the time, no questions asked, and Byleth gets landing hitboxes to help him out with his spinny combos, and then the
It honestly felt so random which characters just got landing hitboxes on their multi-hits. I don't know what that was about.
Pits are left playing Russian roulette every single goddamn time.
It's true!
Pikachu's player base, on the other hand, had no such evolution. They latched onto his loops from day one, and how could they not? The brand new lightning neutral air he got in Ultimate is so custom built for this that, you know what? Maybe I'm back to thinking the devs did do this on purpose. Seriously, look at this. It's obscene, and another reminder, 100% true. I'm sure many of you remember, or at least are familiar with the horrors of Smash 4 Bayo, who could tag you anywhere on the stage and convert it into a kill as easy as breathing. And when she was first showcased in Ultimate, the world despaired, for it looked like no lessons had been learned, and the witch would continue her trickery forevermore.
What game is this?
Oh my
What
God.
game is this?
Green's being such a low.
Sources say, so that was a real clip. That was MK Leo comboing Plup off of the top of Dreamland in front of a live audience with Sakurai watching. But I'm pretty sure that clip right there got Bayonetta nerfed because up air no longer sends up. But people in the crowd were literally like booing and upset. And Sakurai was, really? Leo leaned in to save us? Oh yeah, he learned Bayonetta combos in record time. I mean, literally look at this tweet. See the BNB off the top from Bayonetta and shake his head. Woo, baby!
And a lesson was learned. The final version of Bayonetta released to the public could no longer do this. Balance had been restored, and they achieved the insurmountable by transforming Bayonetta into a fair character. Then her players just had to figure out that if you land only the first hit of Witch Twist, it sets up perfectly for the good old days to come roaring back in. Let's wind down on some fun stuff that I had trouble fitting into a standalone segment. Sheik's forward tilt is an excellent combo tool in every single Smash game it appears in, but it took years for people to figure out just how good the weird hitbox on specifically her knee is. It randomly launches opponents at just an incredible angle for follow-ups.
I didn't know that move had multiple hitboxes.
All you have to do is throw out a lingering attack and make contact with your opponent when you're already partially finished it, which gives you more time to follow up because you're not stuck sitting through nearly as much of the animation anymore.
I think that's a really cool optimization, is hitting with the later part of your active frames so you have more time to punish. Down a similar vein, something I really like to do and something I taught a lot of people early in this game, like when I was going to tournaments, was air dodging early. If you know your opponent is going to swing, you can air dodge a little bit earlier so that you have more time to punish them.
Definitely going against what they were tuned to do, but there wasn't really a way for the devs to account for that unless they wanted to remove all lingering hitboxes from the game. Oh, and speaking of weird hitbox stuff, Little Mac's ass. It's far better than the punch on neutral air for some reason. This one feels illegal. Me Brawler's soaring axe kick-up special is generally agreed to be the weakest one, but that said, it can do this. And that's just
cool.
Not fair. I don't mind bullshit spikes existing in the game, but they're supposed to take you down with them like a man. It's been really cool seeing Lucas's Zaire chains evolve from a curiosity a few specialists had on deck to something good Lucas players are just expected to be able to do. But I am curious about why Ness's similar loops with PSI Magnet haven't gotten anywhere near the same traction, despite also being theoretically great and utilizing a move he leans on more, if anything. Not sure what's up with that. Do shield breakers go in a video about combos? Screw it, what better combo starter is there if you really think about it? And man, imagine egg roll being a usable move in 2026.
I think egg roll is overpowered, even outside of the insta shield break.
And ending on an all-time classic. They
Ding dong.
really tried to kill Donkey Kong's Ding Dong of Smash 4 infamy, but if you chuck your opponent at just the right height to cancel your leg on a platform, it's alive and kicking. And yet, somehow, this combination of careful developer intent and players' hunger to break it resulted in something that's wacky and janky, pretty damn fun, more balanced than anyone could have expected, and totally unique in the world of gaming. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like I said, I knew going in I couldn't possibly capture all of Ultimate's combo developments, but I tried to hit a good chunk. Feel free to share more I missed. Likes and comments help out in the algorithm, so if it's warranted, much appreciated, and you can check out more Mock Rock above, Mock Rock Talk below, and patrons and members get cool perks.
Combos have definitely come a long way in Ultimate, and that's a beautiful thing. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe, like the video, comment. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.